In my latest Rogu video, it looks like I sparked quite a bit of a debate in the comments section about who American Dad's least liked character is. I mean, I honestly thought that Rogu was the most disliked by the community, but as it turns out, loads of you seem to love that little tumour.
Kiss Rogu once again, but this time just the man.
So, if it's not Rogu, who is the most unpopular recurring character in AD? To get to the bottom of this, once and for all, I made a poll, and with over 25,000 votes, and leading with a massive 66% is Billy.
Who's your least favourite character now, Reddit?
And then, just to cover all of my bases, I made another poll, this time adding in other characters that people said that they didn't like in the comments section, like Terry for instance, who did have a lot of mentions. But yes, the result was still the same. Poor little Billy.
Eat knuckles, freak!
The general consensus amongst fans seems to be that they just find him too grotesque, annoying, that he has no place in the show, and on top of that has a really grating voice.
Rogu, I almost didn't get to say goodbye.
Personally, I've never thought too much about Billy to form a strong enough opinion, and I was actually surprised that he was this disliked. So I decided to go back and watch every single time that Billy appears on the show, in order to see if I could find the root cause of all this hatred, and if it is really that deserved. Here's what I found. So, Billy made his first ever appearance in Season 11's Roots. When Steve wishes that he could be taller, Klaus recommends that he visits Dr. Calgary, and at first the doctor seems like a very ordinary, kind man.
Always remember your inner worth, cause that'll make you feel 10 feet tall.
That is until he hears Klaus's name and his true mad scientist side is revealed.
There's bone splicing, giraffe marrow transplant. I could boil your brain in gorilla hormones.
A little disturbed, Steve steps away to think about whether he really wants the procedure, and after some consideration, he ultimately decides to go through with it and returns. And this is where he and we meet Billy for the very first time.
I used to be 6 inches tall. Now I'm Daddy's favorite.
And listening to him here, I still can't believe that Kevin Michael Richardson voices Billy. He has such a deep, rich voice, so it is very impressive that he can make him sound so high-pitched and very whiny.
Hooray!
The range voice actors have really astounds me sometimes.
End of days, bitches!
Although Billy calls Dr. Calgary Daddy, I don't really believe he's actually biologically related to him. He could simply be an unfortunate child whom the doctor adopted just so he could be used as a human guinea pig for his bizarre experiments. Or alternatively, Billy might not even be human at all. He could be Dr. Calgary's unnatural creation. Anyway, as Dr. Calgary prepares for the procedure, Steve suddenly changes his mind, but before he can do anything about it, he's put to sleep. Luckily, just as Calgary is about to saw off Steve's feet, Stan arrives and manages to save him. And as the police approach, Dr. Calgary instructs Billy to fly away.
Run, Billy!
And it's worth noting here that aside from his name being briefly mentioned once, Billy doesn't actually appear again in this season. No, Billy isn't seen again until Season 12's Roger's Baby. To cut a long story short, basically, Jeff and Haley can't have a baby because his brain is technically inside an alien body, and the only way to make him fully human again is for Roger to slurp up his brains like spaghetti and then give birth to him. Yep, American Dad is a very weird show. But yes, the only doctor that they can trust with all this bizarre kind of stuff is, you guessed it, Dr. Calgary, who performs the ultrasound. And although Billy may have started out as just a patient, he's now been promoted to the doctor's assistant.
I'm getting stronger.
This is only a brief scene in the whole of the episode, but he does play a slightly bigger role in the episode Family Plan, because in the opening, the Smiths show up for Dr. Calgary's wedding.
Now it's time to create a family.
What are you, workshopping your speech right now? Shut the hell up, man!
You know, I'll never really understand why people hate Klaus so much, because he's hilarious. Anyway, it looks like Billy finally has a mummy.
Now I have a mommy to bathe me.
Actually, oh wait, no he doesn't, because we never actually see this woman ever again. I guess she was yet again another one of Calgary's failed science experiments. When season 13 comes around, we learn that when he's not helping his daddy, Billy does actually go to school. And you know what? I feel kind of bad for Billy. He just looks so brittle. Like, the mere act of walking just looks so darn painful to him. And then later on, gradually the episode Persona Assistant, we see a little bit more of his personality, and the boy has some sass.
You left an empty case in here. I don't have X-ray vision.
Yes, you do, Billy!
I don't really know why this line is so funny to me, but it randomly pops into my head sometimes, and I don't know, it just cracks me up. And then in this other episode, we learn that he can be a horny little bugger.
Page 69.
Oh, yeah. I'll do that with anyone.
By season 14, he looks like he's just one of the boys now. Even Toshi is confused.
俺たちこの変な生き物といつ友達になったんだよ。
We also learn that in addition to X-ray vision, Billy also has premonition powers, knowing that the episode would end with Principal Lewis buying a mattress factory.
You want to buy a mattress factory? Yeah, I do.
I had the premonition again.
And in the episode The Hand That Rocks the Rogu, he has a pretty funny scene where he travels across the world to stretch out a curly fry.
Not even on my wedding night or the day I buried my son, Mitsuhiro.
Now, let's get to the most common complaint that I've seen regarding Billy, and it's his voice. And look, I get it, it's kinda grating, but I find it tolerable because he barely appears, and when he does, it's only for a small scene or two. He doesn't outstay his welcome enough for it to become too annoying. For now, anyway. And speaking of his voice, in season 15, Salute Your Slort, he gets a brand new tongue which allows him to talk faster.
I can talk faster now. Hey, Billy, Billy, Billy. Hi, Billy. Ho, Billy. Who, Billy? You, Billy. Me, Billy. We, Billy.
This episode is his biggest one so far because he plays a much larger role in it. When the boys want the new hot Swedish exchange student named Slort to join their group, Billy wants to be a new member too.
Who has a tongue that can point to his own face and wants to be in your crew? This guy.
Although I did think he was already a part of their crew. Anyway, when Slort is accused of murder, the boys team up to prove her innocence, and Billy acts as their tech guy, but he's the one who manages to figure out that Slort is in fact the killer, and is actually a troll. And just as he gears up to rescue his precious, precious boys, he accidentally blows his arms off.
No! My precious boys!
It was so fun seeing Billy get a bit more involved with the boys and getting to do a little more within the plot. But much like Rogu, every time it looks like the writers are about to incorporate him just a little bit more, he immediately goes back to being a barely seen background character. Which I guess is totally fine, especially for someone like Billy who is best used for smaller scenes, because I don't want to see him become a permanent member of the boys group, because 4 is more than enough. Whereas with someone like Rogu, I was always expecting him to be used far more because he's literally so connected to the main cast. In the next season, we find out that Dr. Calgary has made Billy a big brother.
Check out this R-rated movie, little bro. Oh, yeah.
And in the episode Klaus and Rogu, we learn that Billy and the little tumor are best buddies. And when Rogu goes missing, Billy is so distraught that he starts singing.
Oh, where are you, my sweet Rogu?
Which again, is actually a pretty funny scene. But it's in episode 22, Steve Frankenau, that Billy gets his largest role yet, because when the Science Club's beloved tortoise is killed, Billy suggests bringing it back to life using his father's reanimator machine. This plan actually works and the tortoise comes alive. But when Lewis steals it and plans to cancel the Science Club, Steve pushes him down the stairs. They then tie him up, and to cover up the principal's absence, dig up Lewis's ancestors, taking parts from each one of them, stitching them together, and bring an abomination to life.
It's a Lewis!
But then the zombie Lewis gets free and Billy offers to help find him. That is until his daddy tells him off for stealing the reanimator blueprints.
That's right! You better run!
I feel that honestly, this was the best use for Billy. He's a great character to bring in when the boys are doing science experiments. But even here, the writers knew not to have Billy say too much because they knew that his voice could get really grating for the audience. So moving on to season 17, and he only appears 3 times in it and only says a line or two. And the same can be said for season 18, where he only appears 3 times, with the only notable thing being is that we learn about Billy being this.
There are parts of me that are 300 years old, but I'm young where it counts.
Yeah. And in the very latest season, he's only appeared twice so far, and he doesn't really do anything in those appearances either. I feel like here the producers caught on to the fact that Billy wasn't really well liked, and so started to massively reduce his screen time. Like I mentioned at the start, people really found Billy annoying, especially his voice, which is even more annoying than Rogu's, and that's saying something. Don't come at me, Rogu stans, you know it's true. And I guess I can also understand why his design may be so off-putting to some people, because he looks like he's in constant pain. I also feel that one of the biggest reasons why Billy never really caught on with most of the audience is because, just like Rogu, he never really had much staying power. He randomly pops in, delivers a line, and then disappears again, which would be perfectly fine if he actually had some memorable lines. And outside of that X-ray vision scene and the one where he lives a lifetime while holding a curly fry, but other than those, he just doesn't really have that many standout moments. At least with Rogu, he makes full use of his small screen time. Almost every single line he says is funny, but yeah, I can't say the same for Billy. The real problem with Billy is that he's kind of just a nothing character. There isn't really much depth there. And I feel he doesn't really have enough presence to feel anything for him, except for, I guess, pity. And sorry to keep bringing it back to Rogu, but it was understandable why so many fans were frustrated with how little he was used, because he was so tied to the main cast. He was Roger's tumor, basically Roger's son, and as such, you'd expect to see him more. Whereas with Billy and even Dr. Calgary, they aren't really tied to any major characters, making it really hard for them to just pop into storylines, which I think is why that they made Billy go to school so he could have that connection with at least Steve and his friends, but they simply don't do too much with it. I personally don't dislike Billy as much as others seem to, simply because he doesn't overstay his welcome. At least he has made me laugh a couple of times, but also saying that, I can't really say that I love him either. And if I was ever to make an American Dad character tier ranking list, he would probably be very near the bottom. So overall, I feel like American Dad uses him maybe just the right amount, and to be honest, I don't think most people would care if he disappeared entirely one day. But what do you think? Do you love Billy, or are you one of those that hate him? Let me know in the comments below.